You know, as much as the sports world has bickered over the issue of compensating college athletes, it looks like that debate is about to reach a whole new level. I'm talking about completely remaking the NCAA type levels here. A lawsuit that began in 2009 over the NCAA profiting off the likenesses of former athletes in like EA Sports video games is now gaining momentum. Former UCLA basketball player Ed O'Bannon filed the suit, claiming the NCAA should not be profiting from their names and images without sharing the royalty payments. In their latest filing, O'Bannon's lawyers argued that the case deserves a class action status. If their request is granted, the NCAA would be liable for claims brought not just by the plaintiffs, but also by all former athletes. So anyone who's ever played a Division I college sport could sue for damages for every instance in which his or her image was used in a video game, highlight reel, broadcast, or rebroadcast. Perhaps even more importantly, this would open the door to current and future athletes essentially being able to negotiate licensing agreements with their colleges and the NCAA or whatever's left of it. A hearing to determine whether the lawsuit can proceed is scheduled for June 20th. And Jason Anderson of ESPN 680 joins me now. And Jason, how huge is this?
It's monumental for the NCAA. There's a very, very big day coming in what is the current NCAA and what could be the future of the NCAA on June 20th. And that's when this entire case will find out if the class will get certified or not. And if the class gets certified, then it's going to jury trial. And if it goes to a jury could then look at all the information and rule in favor of the plaintiff. And if they do that, which is Ed O'Bannon and all the players past, all the players present, and maybe even future as well, if it does rule in favor of the plaintiff after it gets certified and it gives the plaintiffs what they want, we're talking about a damages case, which will then triple whatever that particular, even if it's $1, it'd then be $3 or whatever.
Right.
Whatever it is would triple. It would just essentially bankrupt the NCAA, which would then make all the universities that are, under the NCAA kind of find a whole new governing body.
Poof. So the whole system changes in that verdict. And a lot of people are kind of likening this to the Curt Flood case in the 1970s when free agency in baseball remade that game. But in this sense, it's almost bigger because it would change the governing and it would change, basically, it would create a compensation status, right? It would.
It would create a compensation status for the future going forward. And it would almost also create a new kind of subdivision for college sports, college athletics, what you would essentially call the Power Five conferences, the SEC, the ACC, Pac-12, Big 12, and Big 10. Those five conferences would essentially be the only conferences that could afford to pay their particular student athletes this stipend or whatever money that would be going along with licensing fees. And if they're able to do that, then they would essentially become their own kind of subdivision under whatever umbrella that is governing these institutions, whether it's the NCAA or something different. And so we would see competition between just those really five conferences.
Yeah, but there's also, I guess, a path for other universities that maybe could tap boosters. I mean, I'm thinking about Harvard here. I mean, here's not an athletic powerhouse, but they have a lot of rich donors. And those Ivy League schools could essentially, tap their donors a little bit more to try and basically buy athletes, right?
I think you would have the opportunity. It would be interesting to see the way that it's set up. Whatever scale they use or whatever, overall ruling they have, if they look at it and say, okay, we'll set $2 million a year aside. And I think if the NCAA, let's say this case gets, certified. Let's say the class gets certified and the NCAA says, oh, wow, this thing's going to jury. We could lose everything. Let's settle out of court. I think if they end up settling with the plaintiffs for something like $2 million a year to go towards athletes at those particular universities, I don't think there's any question the plaintiffs would take it and run and say, that's a good deal. We'll move forward with that. Therefore, there's something going towards these particular athletes. And if that's the case, then it's a matter of which schools would be able to do that. And what you're talking about, I think a number of schools would be able to do that because then you would tap into some of those boosters, those donors that have been there for a long time, i.e. the Nevin Shapiros of the world. He would no longer have to take the athletes out on the boat and have to take them out himself. He would know that they're getting some sort of a money. So his all of the money he was spending on those particular individual athletes, he could then go and funnel it to the university, who would then funnel it to the players. That's the big problem with the Nevin Shapiro case in Miami. It's the fact that the university wants that money. They don't want to see the players get that money. The university wants Nevin Shapiro to give them all the money so they can put it towards their budget and see what they can do with it. The fact that it's going straight to the players, now there's a big problem.
Right. Well, let's back up and talk about the NCAA's response. And it's basically the crux of the argument is the same argument they've been using about compensating athletes overall. I got a chance to talk with University of Louisville President James Ramsey at the NCAA tournament. Here's what he said when I asked him about compensating athletes.
They are being compensated. They're getting a college degree. They're getting academic support. They're getting a lot of things that a lot of students aren't getting. So, I mean, first, they are being compensated. And the question on whether or not they should be paid, I think, is a legitimate question that needs to be debated.
Is getting an education and scholarships, is that enough of a compensation to essentially, hold that argument?
I've evolved over time in this particular case. 5, 10 years ago, I would have said absolutely that's enough. I mean, this is something that a lot of kids like myself go to college, use student loans, graduate from college, and have a lot of money that they're paying back really essentially for the rest of their lives. And these are student athletes that are getting their, education for free, if you will. They're working for it, but they're also not having to pay any money when it's all said and done. I've evolved from the standpoint that it's no longer enough. The same amateur facade that they've been using for a long time is the same argument they've been using since 1960. And these TV networks deals, these billions of dollars, these coaches going from making 6 figures to 7 figures to, over a couple of years, 3 years, over the life of a contract, 8 figures. These are different stratospheric numbers that we're talking about that were never around when the NCAA came out with this whole charade and facade of amateurism. And the Olympics have come up with different ways. The Olympics used to say that you couldn't get paid and you couldn't take any endorsements. And they're able to do that now. And not only are they okay, they've actually strived in that particular aspect of it.
And there's been huge inconsistencies. I mean, I look at the case of Joel Bauman, the Minnesota wrestler, who essentially had he was a rapper on the side, and they ruled him ineligible to wrestle because he was making money off of his rap videos and music.
Off of iTunes and stuff.
Yeah.
And the problem with that is that he played, he was a wrestler for Minnesota. Had he just been somebody that played the clarinet and sold all of his records online, he's perfectly fine. He can still go to class. He can be on a clarinet scholarship or a piano scholarship in the music department and have everything paid for and make all of his money off the side, go work some gigs on the weekend, create a record, whatever it is, and go and make money off of that and still keep his scholarship. But because he's a wrestler for the NCAA, he cannot make any sort of money off of his talents that have nothing to do with wrestling but have to do with singing. And that's a completely hypocritical and archaic way of viewing things.
Well, clearly we thought all the action on the court in the NCAA was over when the Final Four was over, but the action in the other court is only just beginning.
June 20th, very, very big day.
June 20th. All right.